Amy Carter adjusted her breathing mask and checked her sample collection kit one more time. The young woman had been working as a scientist on the research ship USS Discovery for 2 years now. At 23, she was one of the youngest people ever to join a deep space mission. Her specialty was studying alien life forms, and she loved every minute of it. The planet below looked beautiful from space. Kepler 442c had blue oceans and green forests, much like Earth. The air was breathable for humans, and early scans showed many interesting plants and animals. Amy's job was to collect samples and bring them back to the ship for study. "Discovery, this is Amy," she spoke into her radio as her small shuttle flew toward the planet's surface. "Beginning descent now. Weather looks good down there." "Captain," Lisa Monroe's voice crackled back through the speaker. "Copy that, Amy. Remember, stay close to the landing zone. We don't know what kind of predators might be down there." "Don't worry, Captain, I'll be careful," Amy replied with a smile. She had done this kind of work dozens of times before. Land, collect samples, get back to the ship. Simple and safe. Dr. Marcus Bell, her research partner and best friend, was monitoring her mission from the Discovery. "Amy, I'm seeing some unusual energy readings about 10 miles north of your landing site. Might want to avoid that area." "Got it, Marcus. Thanks for watching out for me." Amy had known Marcus since their college days. He was like a big brother to her, always worried about her safety. The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by tall purple trees. Amy grabbed her equipment and stepped outside. The air smelled sweet like flowers. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, making musical sounds. It seemed like a peaceful place. Amy began collecting plant samples, carefully placing each one in a special container. She took pictures and made notes about everything she saw. The work was slow but important. Each sample might contain new medicines or help them understand how life developed on other worlds. She had been working for about an hour when she noticed the birds had stopped singing. The forest became very quiet. Amy looked around, feeling nervous. Something was wrong. A shadow passed overhead, much too large to be one of the flying creatures she had seen before. Amy looked up and saw a massive ship, black as night, hovering silently above the trees. It was unlike any human ship she had ever seen. Strange symbols covered its hull, and it made no sound at all. Amy reached for her radio. "Discovery, this is Amy. I have a problem. There's an alien ship above me. It's huge." Static filled her earpiece. The radio was dead. Suddenly, a bright blue beam shot down from the ship. Amy tried to run, but the beam caught her. She couldn't move her arms or legs. Her body felt frozen, but her mind was still clear. Panic filled her as she realized she was trapped. The beam lifted her off the ground. Amy watched helplessly as the forest grew smaller below her. Her shuttle looked like a toy. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The paralysis beam held her completely still. Inside the alien ship, Amy found herself in a metal room with no windows. The walls were covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow and move. The air was cold and smelled like chemicals. She could move again, but there was nowhere to go. The room had no doors that she could see. 3 creatures entered, through a wall that simply opened like liquid metal. Amy's breath caught in her throat. The aliens were tall and thin with gray skin that looked like leather. Their heads were too large for their bodies, and they had 4 arms instead of 2. Most frightening were their eyes, completely black, like empty holes. One of the creatures spoke, but not with its mouth. The words appeared directly in Amy's mind, cold and harsh. "Human female, you will provide us with entertainment and data." Amy found her voice. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" "We are the HFY. We study pain. Your species is new to us. We will learn how much suffering you can endure before you break." Another alien stepped forward. This one was larger than the others and wore what looked like a crown made of black metal. Amy could feel evil radiating from it like heat from a fire. "I am Supreme Tormentor Crixth. I have broken the will of creatures from 67 different worlds. You will be my newest experiment." Amy's military training kicked in. She had served in Earth's defense forces before becoming a scientist. "I demand to be returned to my ship. Harming me will bring the wrath of the entire human fleet." Crixth made a sound that might have been laughter. Your kind is weak and primitive. We have been watching your expansion into space. You have no power to threaten us. The aliens forced Amy onto a metal table. Clamps locked around her wrists and ankles. She struggled, but the restraints were too strong. Fear filled her, but she tried not to show it. These creatures fed on suffering. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break down. Your ship believes you have died in an accident, Crixith said, his mental voice filled with cruel pleasure. They will search for a few days and then leave. No one is coming to save you. Amy thought about Marcus and Captain Monroe. They would be worried sick. Marcus would probably blame himself for not stopping her from going down alone. The thought of their pain hurt worse than her own fear. Strange machines descended from the ceiling. They looked like metal spiders with glowing red eyes. Amy could see sharp instruments attached to their legs. Her heart raced as they moved closer. We will begin with simple pain receptors, Crixith explained. Then we will explore your emotional responses. Fear, despair, hopelessness. We will catalog them all. Amy closed her eyes and tried to remember her training. Survive, observe, look for weaknesses. The aliens might think they had captured a helpless victim, but Amy was a soldier and a scientist. She would find a way to fight back. The first machine touched her arm with a thin needle. Lightning shot through her nervous system. Amy bit her lip to keep from screaming. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt, not just physical but somehow attacking her mind as well. Interesting, Crixth observed. Your pain tolerance is higher than expected. We will need to increase the intensity. Through the agony, Amy forced herself to study her captors. She noticed their technology, their behavior, the way they reacted to her responses. Even while suffering, she was gathering information. Her military implant was recording everything, she hoped. If she ever got free, this data would be valuable. But escape seemed impossible. The aliens had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Amy was alone, trapped, and at the mercy of creatures who had no mercy at all. As the torture continued, Amy held on to one thought. Humans were survivors. Her people had endured ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless other disasters. They had always found a way to keep going, to fight back, to win against impossible odds. She might die in this place, but she would not break. She would not give these monsters the satisfaction of destroying her spirit. And somehow, some way, she would make them pay for what they were doing. Amy Carter had no idea that her death would not be the end of her story, but only the beginning of something far more dangerous than the Vexhai could possibly imagine. Hours passed like years. Amy had lost count of how many times the alien machines had hurt her. Each wave of pain was different, more creative than the last. The Vexhai seemed to take pleasure in finding new ways to make her suffer. Crixith watched, every moment with those empty black eyes. He made notes on a device that looked like liquid metal flowing between his four hands. Sometimes he would lean close to Amy's face, studying her reactions like she was an interesting bug under a microscope. Your species fascinates me, he said directly into her mind. Most creatures begin begging for death after the first hour. You have endured 6 hours and still show defiance. Amy's body screamed in agony, but she forced herself to speak. Is that all you've got? I've had worse pain from stubbing my toe. It was a lie. The pain was beyond anything she had ever imagined, but her military training had taught her never to give the enemy what they wanted. These aliens wanted to see her break. She would die before giving them that satisfaction. Crixith made that horrible laughing sound again. Excellent. Your courage will make the eventual breaking even more enjoyable. A new machine lowered from the ceiling. This one was different from the others. Instead of needles and cutting tools, it had a crown-like device covered in pulsing lights. Amy watched it with growing dread. This device will access your neural pathways, Crixith explained. We will explore your memories, your fears, your deepest emotional wounds. Physical pain is crude. Mental anguish is an art form. The crown settled on Amy's head. Immediately, her mind filled with visions. She saw her parents' faces, twisted with disappointment. She relived every failure, every moment of shame from her entire life. The device found her deepest fears and made them real. But something unexpected happened. As the alien technology probed her mind, Amy felt herself pushing back. Her neural implant, the standard military device that enhanced memory and reaction time, began interfacing with the HFY systems. She couldn't control it, but she could feel it happening. Through the connection, Amy began to understand fragments of the alien language. She caught glimpses of their ship's layout, their computer systems, even their weaknesses. The HFY were so focused on causing her pain that they didn't notice the data flowing both ways. Curious, Crixith observed. Your neural activity is not following predicted patterns. Most subjects show steadily decreasing resistance. Yours is increasing. Amy pretended to be weaker than she was. She let tears flow and made small sounds of pain. But inside, she was studying everything. The HFY had made a mistake by connecting their technology to her brain. They thought they were breaking her mind, but they were actually giving her access to their systems. More aliens entered the chamber. Amy counted 12 of them now, all watching her with scientific interest. They spoke to each other in their own language, but Amy was beginning to understand pieces of it. The human shows unusual resistance patterns, one said. Perhaps we should try the bone-melting procedure, suggested another. No, Crixith replied. I want to explore her psychological breaking point first. Physical destruction is permanent. Mental anguish can be repeated indefinitely. Amy filed away every word. These creatures were not just torturing her for science. They were planning to do this to other humans. She had to find a way to stop them. The torture continued for hours. The aliens tried different approaches, different types of pain, different mental attacks. Amy endured them all, growing stronger with each assault. The neural interface was teaching her their language, their technology, their way of thinking. During brief moments when the machines paused to recalibrate, Amy studied the chamber. She noticed the way the walls opened and closed. She observed the hierarchy among her captors. She memorized the layout of every device, every control panel, every potential weapon. Crixith became increasingly frustrated. Your resistance is illogical. We have used techniques that broke the strongest warriors from a dozen species. Why do you not surrender? Amy looked directly into his black eyes. Because I'm human. We don't know how to quit. All creatures have a breaking point, Crixith insisted. We simply have not found yours yet. He activated a new device. This one sent waves of agony through Amy's entire nervous system. It felt like being burned alive from the inside out. She screamed, unable to hold back the sound any longer. The pain was so intense that she briefly lost consciousness. When she woke up, Crixith was standing over her with something that might have been satisfaction. There, you see? Even humans can be broken. But Amy smiled through her pain. That wasn't breaking. That was just getting started. The neural interface had given her more than language and technical knowledge. It had shown her the HFY's deepest fear. They were terrified of creatures that could not be broken, species that grew stronger under pressure. They had built their entire civilization on the premise that all life could be dominated through suffering. Amy represented something they had never encountered before, a creature that turned pain into strength, that used suffering as fuel for resistance. She was everything they feared most. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Discovery, Marcus paced the bridge like a caged animal. It had been 18 hours since Amy's last transmission. Her shuttle had been found abandoned, with no signs of struggle or equipment failure. We have to go down there and search for her, Marcus demanded for the 10th time. Captain Monroe understood his frustration, but she had to think about the safety of her entire crew. Marcus, we've scanned that entire continent. There's no trace of her life signs, no evidence of where she went. Then she's not on the planet, Marcus said. Something took her. That's what I'm afraid of, Monroe replied quietly. She had been in space long enough to know that humans were not alone in the galaxy. There were things out there that viewed humans as nothing more than interesting specimens. We need to call for military backup. suggested Lieutenant Commander Jake Phillips, the ship's tactical officer. If hostile aliens are operating in this system, we need real weapons. Monroe nodded. Already done. The USS Vengeance is 3 days out, but I doubt they'll find anything by then. Marcus stared out at the stars, hoping against hope that Amy was still alive somewhere. She was tough, tougher than most people realized. If anyone could survive whatever had happened to her, it would be Amy Carter. Back on the HFY ship, Amy was learning to hide her growing strength. The neural interface had given her access to more than just their language and technology. She was beginning to understand their entire culture, their history, their methods of operation. The HFY had been doing this for thousands of years. They had torture chambers on dozens of worlds, filled with victims from hundreds of species. They saw themselves as scientists, but they were really just sadists with advanced technology. Amy also learned something else. The HFY had been monitoring human expansion into space for decades. They had detailed files on human military capabilities, colony locations, even Earth itself. They were planning something much larger than just her capture. As the hours dragged, Amy's body began to shut down. The constant pain and stress were taking their toll. Her heart rate became irregular. Her breathing grew shallow. Even her enhanced determination could not overcome the limits of human physiology. Crixeth noticed the change immediately. Interesting. Your biological functions are failing, but your mental resistance remains strong. We will document this phenomenon. Amy could feel herself dying. Her vision was growing dark around the edges. Her limbs felt cold and distant. But she was not afraid. She had learned what she needed to know. Even if she died here, the knowledge in her neural implant would survive. Somehow, it would find its way back to humanity. The last thing Amy saw, before darkness claimed her, was Crixeth leaning over her with scientific curiosity, watching her die like she was a fascinating experiment.
Amy's heart stopped beating at exactly 14 minutes past the 18th hour of her captivity. The monitoring devices attached to her body registered the flatline immediately. Her brain activity ceased. Her breathing stopped. By every definition
known to medical science, Amy Carter was dead. Crixeth studied the readings with scientific interest. Fascinating. The human specimen maintained mental resistance until the moment of biological failure. Note this for the research files. The other HFY gathered around Amy's lifeless body. They had tortured creatures from many worlds, but few had shown such stubborn defiance. Most begged for mercy within the first few hours. Some tried to bargain or negotiate. A few attempted brave speeches about revenge and justice. But Amy had simply endured hour after hour, growing stronger instead of weaker. "Shall we begin the dissection?" asked one of the younger aliens. "The human anatomy might provide useful data for future experiments." Crixeth nodded. "Yes, but first let us document the cause of death. The heart failure appears to have been triggered by neurological overload rather than physical trauma. This suggests their species has interesting mental-physical connections." The aliens began preparing their cutting tools. They had performed thousands of such procedures on other species. To them, Amy was no longer a person, but simply biological material to be studied and catalogued. None of them noticed the tiny machines moving through Amy's bloodstream. The nanomachines had been dormant during her life, following strict programming protocols. They were designed to activate only under specific conditions, when the host's vital signs ceased completely and remained flat for more than 60 seconds. This delay prevented accidental activation during temporary unconsciousness or near-death states. Now, with Amy's death confirmed, the nanomachines began their work. These microscopic devices were humanity's most closely guarded military secret. Developed from alien technology captured during humanity's first contact with hostile extraterrestrials decades earlier, they represented the cutting edge of human medical science. Only the most elite military personnel received them, and their existence was known to fewer than 100 people in the entire human government. The nanomachines spread throughout Amy's body like a microscopic army. They began repairing cellular damage at the molecular level, Dead tissue was broken down and rebuilt. Neural pathways were restored. Blood vessels were patched and reinforced. The process was slow and complex. The nanomachines had to work carefully to avoid triggering the alien monitoring systems. They operated at frequencies below the threshold of HFY sensors, rebuilding Amy's body one cell at a time. But something unexpected was happening. The HFY neural interface device was still connected to Amy's brain. As the nanomachines restored her neural tissue, they encountered the alien technology still attached to her nervous system. The nanomachines were programmed to integrate with any foreign technology they found, converting it to serve their hosts' needs. They had done this countless times with human medical implants and devices, but they had never encountered alien technology this advanced. Instead of rejecting the HFY interface, the nanomachines began adapting it. They rewrote its programming, converted its control systems, and integrated its processing power with Amy's own neural implant. The result was something entirely new, a hybrid human-alien consciousness enhancement system. Crixith was examining Amy's fingernails when he noticed the first sign of change. The human's skin temperature had increased by 2 degrees. He checked the monitoring devices, but they still showed no life signs. "Curious," he muttered. "Perhaps there is residual biological activity after brain death. We should note this phenomenon." The other HFY continued their preparations, arranging surgical instruments and recording equipment. They worked with the casual efficiency of beings who had done this thousands of times before. To them, the slight temperature change was merely an interesting footnote to their research. They did not notice that Amy's wounds were healing. The nanomachines worked faster now, their initial repairs creating momentum that accelerated the restoration process. Major organs came back online one by one. The heart muscle was rebuilt and strengthened. The lungs cleared and expanded. The liver began processing toxins again. Most importantly, the brain was being reconstructed with improvements. The nanomachines used the alien interface technology to enhance Amy's cognitive abilities, memory capacity, and processing speed. They created new neural pathways that could handle both human thought patterns and alien data structures. Amy's consciousness began to stir in the darkness of death. At first, there was only confusion and pain. But gradually, she became aware of something incredible. She could understand everything around her, the HFY language, which she had only begun to comprehend. During the torture was now completely clear to her. She could follow their conversations perfectly. More than that, she could access their computer systems through the neural interface. The alien ship's databases were open to her like books. Amy learned about the HFY Empire in those moments of returning consciousness. They controlled 17 star systems and had enslaved or destroyed 43 different species. Their torture chambers operated on hundreds of worlds, processing thousands of victims every year. She saw detailed plans for attacks on human colonies. The HFY had been studying human military capabilities for decades, preparing for a massive assault. They planned to capture thousands of humans for their experiments, treating her people like laboratory animals. The knowledge filled Amy with a cold, focused rage unlike anything she had ever felt. These creatures had tortured her for their entertainment. They had murdered countless innocent beings, and they planned to do the same thing to humanity on a massive scale. But Amy also discovered something else through the alien databases. The HFY had a weakness. For all their advanced technology and cruel intelligence, they had never encountered a species that could not be broken through suffering. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that all creatures would eventually surrender to pain. They had no defenses against something that grew stronger under pressure. Amy's heart began beating again at 34 minutes after her recorded death. The monitoring devices remained silent because the nanomachines had learned to mask her vital signs from HFY sensors. To the aliens, she still appeared dead. Her breathing resumed 3 minutes later, so quietly that even the sensitive alien hearing could not detect it. The nanomachines had enhanced her lung capacity and efficiency, allowing her to function on minimal oxygen. At exactly 37 minutes after her death, Amy Carter opened her eyes. She moved slowly, carefully, testing her rebuilt body. Everything felt different. She was stronger, faster, her senses sharper than they had ever been. The hybrid neural system gave her access to both human intuition and alien logic processing. The HFY were still preparing their dissection equipment, with their backs turned to her. They worked with casual arrogance, completely unaware that their victim had returned from the dead. Amy studied the restraints holding her to the table. With her enhanced understanding of HFY technology, she could see exactly how they functioned. The locking mechanism was controlled by a simple electromagnetic field. The nanomachines had given her the ability to interface directly with such systems. She sent a mental command through the neural interface. The restraints opened silently. Amy sat up on the table without making a sound. Her body moved with fluid grace, the nanomachines coordinating her muscles with inhuman precision. She felt like she was controlling a perfectly tuned machine rather than flesh and blood. Crixith was explaining something about human bone density to his assistants when he noticed movement in his peripheral vision. He turned and found himself looking directly into Amy's eyes. For the first time in his long life of causing suffering, Supreme Tormentor Crixith felt true fear. Amy smiled, and it was not a human expression anymore. It was something new, something that combined human determination with alien efficiency and knowledge. "Hello," she said in perfect HFY. "Did you miss me?" The torture chamber fell completely silent. 12 HFY stared at Amy in shock and disbelief. In their thousands of years of existence, they had never seen a dead creature return to life. It violated everything they understood about biology and death. Crixith recovered first, his scientific mind trying to process what he was seeing. "Impossible. You were dead. We confirmed brain death, heart failure, complete system shutdown." Amy slid off the table with movements that seemed too smooth and controlled for someone who had just been resurrected. Her body moved like liquid metal, each step perfectly balanced and silent. The nanomachines had rebuilt her with improvements beyond normal human capability. "Death is just another kind of sleep for humans," Amy said, still speaking their language perfectly. "The difference is what we dream about while we're gone." She walked slowly around the chamber, examining the torture devices with new understanding. Through the alien neural interface, she could see exactly how each machine worked, what it was designed to do, and most importantly, how to use it. "You made a mistake," Amy continued, her voice calm and conversational. "You connected your technology to my brain. You thought you were breaking me, but you were actually teaching me. Now I know everything about your species, your empire, your weaknesses." One of the younger HFY moved toward what looked like an alarm panel on the wall. Amy noticed the movement instantly. Her enhanced reflexes allowed her to cross the room faster than the alien could react. She grabbed his arm and applied pressure to a specific nerve cluster she had learned about from their own medical databases. The HFY collapsed, paralyzed but conscious. Amy had used their own knowledge of anatomy against them. "Nobody calls for help," she said quietly. "This is between us." Crixith tried to project mental commands at Amy, the same way he had controlled her during the torture. But the hybrid neural system in her brain blocked his attempts easily. She was no longer vulnerable to their psychic manipulation. "How are you doing this?" Crixith demanded. "What are you?" Amy picked up one of their neural interface crowns and examined it thoughtfully. "I'm something new. Something your people created, by accident. You wanted to break a human, but instead you made something that's part human, part HFY technology, and completely beyond your control." She placed the crown on her own head and activated it. Instead of causing her pain, the device now responded to her commands. Through it, she accessed the ship's main computer systems. Within seconds, Amy had control of everything: life support, weapons, communications, navigation, security systems. The HFY had built their technology to be controlled through neural interfaces, never imagining that someone could turn those same interfaces against them. "Fascinating," Amy said, scrolling through thousands of files in her mind. "You have detailed records of every species you've tortured. 43 different civilizations completely destroyed. millions of individual victims, all documented with scientific precision. She found files about humans that made her anger burn even hotter. The Vexhi had been preparing for a massive attack on human space. They planned to capture entire colonies, turning thousands of people into experimental subjects. Amy also discovered something else in their databases: the locations of every Vexhi research station in the galaxy. Hundreds of facilities where victims from dozens of species were being tortured at this very moment. The scope of their evil was beyond imagination. "You're going to shut down every one of these facilities," Amy told Crixth. "You're going to free every prisoner and return them to their homeworlds." Crixth made that horrible laughing sound. "You are one creature on a ship with 300 of us. Even if you have gained some abilities, you cannot hope to defeat us. All." Amy smiled, and the expression sent chills through every alien in the room. "Watch me." She sent mental commands through the ship's communication system. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the vessel, but instead of alerting the crew to Amy's escape, the alarms were broadcasting a very different message. "Attention all Vexhi personnel," Amy's voice echoed through every speaker on the ship. "This is your new commander. Your supreme tormentor has been relieved of duty. Report to your quarters immediately and await further instructions." The Vexhi in the torture chamber tried to rush toward the exit, but Amy had already sealed the chamber. The liquid metal walls would not respond to their commands anymore. She controlled the ship's computer systems completely. "You cannot do this," Crixth protested. "We are the masters of this vessel. Our technology will not obey an inferior species." "Your technology doesn't care about species superiority," Amy replied. "It only responds to the correct neural patterns. And thanks to your torture sessions, I now have those patterns." She activated one of their pain machines and pointed it at the nearest Vexhi. The alien screamed as electricity coursed through his nervous system. Amy had turned their own weapon against them. "Please," the creature begged, "stop the pain." Amy increased the intensity. "Did you stop when your victims begged? Did you show mercy when they pleaded for their lives?" She moved from one alien to another, using different torture devices on each one. But Amy was not acting out of simple revenge. She was conducting her own experiment, using their scientific methods to study their reactions to pain. "Interesting," she said, copying Crixth's earlier words. "Your species shows standard fear responses to physical pain. Mental torture appears to be more effective. Let me try accessing your emotional centers." Amy activated the neural crown device and aimed it at Crixth. Suddenly, the Supreme Tormentor was experiencing every moment of pain he had ever inflicted on others. Decades of torture victims flooded his mind simultaneously. He felt their agony, their terror, their despair. Crixth collapsed, overwhelmed by the psychic feedback. For the first time in his existence, he understood what his victims had endured. The knowledge was crushing. "Stop," he whispered. "Please, make it stop." Amy considered his plea for exactly as long as he had considered hers. No, while she worked on the aliens in the torture chamber, Amy was also accessing other parts of the ship through the computer system. She found the crew quarters, the command center, the weapons control room. Everywhere she looked, she saw Vexhi, going about their daily routines, unaware that their ship had been taken over. Amy began systematically hunting them. She used the ship's own security systems to track each crew member. The environmental controls allowed her to flood specific areas with sleeping gas. The gravity generators let her increase or decrease gravity in targeted sections. Every system on the ship became a weapon in her hands. Some of the Vexhi tried to fight back, but they were helpless against someone who controlled their own technology. Amy could see them coming through the ship's sensor network. She could lock doors to trap them or open airlocks to threaten them. The hunters had become the hunted. Meanwhile, 3 days away, the USS Vengeance was approaching the Kepler 442 system at maximum speed. Admiral Jake Rodriguez had received Captain Monroe's distress call and was bringing a full battle group to investigate. Dr. Marcus Bell was aboard the Vengeance, having insisted on joining the rescue mission. He stared out at the stars, Still, hoping against hope that Amy was alive somewhere. The odds were against it, but he refused to give up on his friend. "Admiral," reported the ship's sensor officer, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures in the system. Something big, but it's cloaked." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Battle stations. Whatever happened to our people, we're going to find out. Back." On the HFY ship, Amy had reduced the crew from 300 to less than 50. She had not killed them, but had instead rendered them unconscious or paralyzed. She wanted them alive for what came next. She stood in the ship's command center, surrounded by control panels that now obeyed her every thought. Through the neural interface, she could feel the ship responding to her will like an extension of her own body. Amy was no longer the frightened scientist who had been captured collecting plant samples. She was something new, something dangerous, something that the galaxy had never seen before, and she was just getting started. Admiral Jake Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Kepler 442 system spread out before them, looking peaceful and empty. But the Admiral's sensors told a different story. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy signature," reported Lieutenant Sarah Davis from the sensor station. "It's approximately 2 kilometers long and heavily armed. The ship is using some kind of advanced cloaking technology." Rodriguez turned to Dr. Marcus Bell, who stood nearby with worry etched on his face. "Doctor, any chance your friend could still be alive on that vessel?" Marcus stared at the tactical display showing the alien ship's outline. "If Amy is on that thing, she's either dead or in serious trouble. We need to board it." "Agreed," Rodriguez said. "But first, let's try to make contact. Open a channel on all frequencies." Before the communications officer could respond, every screen on the Vengeance's bridge suddenly activated. A familiar face appeared, but something was wrong. Amy Carter looked different. Her eyes seemed to glow with an inner light, and when she spoke, her voice carried strange harmonics. "Hello, Admiral Rodriguez. Hello, Marcus. I'm glad you made it." Marcus stepped forward in shock. "Amy, you're alive? How is that possible?" Amy smiled, but it was not quite the expression Marcus remembered. "It's a long story. The important thing is that I'm no longer a prisoner. In fact, I'm now in complete control of this vessel and its crew." Rodriguez studied the image carefully. Something about Amy's appearance and manner suggested she had been changed in fundamental ways. "Miss Carter, what is your status? Do you require immediate medical assistance?" "I'm fine, Admiral. Better than fine, actually. The HFY thought they were torturing a helpless human, but they accidentally created something much more dangerous." Amy's expression grew serious. "I need to show you something. You're not going to like it." The main screen shifted to display the contents of the alien ship's database. File after file scrolled past, showing detailed records of torture, murder, and genocide. Hundreds of species had been targeted by the HFY over thousands of years. "These creatures have been operating torture facilities throughout the galaxy," Amy explained. "They've destroyed 43 entire civilizations and enslaved countless others. They were planning a massive attack on human space, intending to capture thousands of our people for their experiments." Rodriguez felt his blood run cold as he reviewed the data. The scope of the HFY's evil was beyond imagination. "How many of these facilities are currently active?" 217 research stations across 68 star systems, Amy replied instantly. "All of them filled with victims from dozens of species. The HFY have been the galaxy's greatest predators for millennia." Marcus looked at his friend with growing concern. Amy seemed different in ways he couldn't quite identify. Her speech patterns were more precise, her knowledge impossibly vast, and there was something unsettling about her perfect composure. "Amy, what happened to you down there? How did you escape?" Amy paused, considering how much to reveal. "I died, Marcus. They tortured me for 18 hours until my body gave out. But death wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of something new." She explained about the nanomachines, the neural interface, and her transformation into something that was part human, part alien technology. As she spoke, Marcus and Admiral Rodriguez began to understand that the person they were talking to was no longer entirely Amy Carter. The Vexi made a critical error, Amy continued. They assumed that all species could be broken through suffering. They never encountered anything that grew stronger under pressure, that turned pain into power. Humanity doesn't break. We adapt. Admiral Rodriguez was beginning to see the larger implications. What do you intend to do with this information and these prisoners? Amy's smile turned cold. Justice, Admiral. The Vexi have spent thousands of years causing pain and death throughout the galaxy. Now it's time for them to face the consequences of their actions. On the alien ship, Amy stood in the command center surrounded by the unconscious forms of the Vexi crew. She had spent hours methodically working through the ship, subjecting each alien to precisely the same tortures they had inflicted on their victims. The irony was not lost on her that she was using their own scientific methods and equipment. Crixith lay nearby, barely conscious after experiencing the accumulated suffering of thousands of his victims. The once proud Supreme Tormentor was now a broken shell, overwhelmed by empathy he had never possessed before. Please, he whispered. No more. I understand now. The pain, the horror. I feel what they felt. Amy looked down at him without pity. Good. That's exactly what I wanted you to experience. Every moment of agony you caused, every life you destroyed, every dream you shattered. Now you know what your victims endured. But Amy's plans extended far beyond simple revenge. Through the ship's communication systems, she had been sending carefully crafted messages to every Vexi facility in the galaxy. The messages contained something unprecedented. The complete records of their crimes, along with detailed technical specifications for their torture devices. More importantly, the messages carried a virus that Amy had created using her hybrid consciousness. The virus would systematically shut down every torture facility, free all prisoners, and broadcast evidence of Vexi atrocities to every civilized species in the galaxy. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system. Miss Carter, we're prepared to take the Vexi prisoners into custody. We'll transport them to Earth for trial. Amy shook her head. That won't be necessary, Admiral. These creatures are never leaving this ship. But I have a different proposal. For you. She transmitted a detailed file to the Vengeance. It contained complete technical specifications for Vexi technology, their ship designs, their weapon systems, and most importantly, their locations throughout the galaxy. I'm giving humanity everything we need to become the galaxy's protector, instead of its prey, Amy explained. The Vexi have left a power vacuum that needs to be filled. Someone needs to hunt down the predators and defend the innocent. Rodriguez studied the information with growing amazement. The technological advancement alone would push human civilization forward by centuries. This is incredible. But what about you? Will you be returning to Earth? Amy was quiet for a long moment. I can't go back, Admiral. The changes that saved my life also made me something that doesn't quite fit in human society anymore. But I can serve humanity in other ways. She outlined her proposal. Amy would lead a new kind of military unit, composed of enhanced humans who could operate in environments and situations that normal soldiers couldn't handle. They would seek out threats to humanity and other peaceful species, using the galaxy's own predators' technology against them. I'm calling it Phoenix Division, Amy said. Soldiers who have died and returned, enhanced and improved, ready to face threats that conventional forces cannot handle. Marcus finally spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. Amy, you're talking about giving up your humanity. Is this really what you want? Amy looked directly at her old friend through the view screen. For just a moment, he saw a flicker of the young scientist he had known. Marcus, they were planning to do to our entire species what they did to me. Millions of humans would have suffered and died in their torture chambers. I can prevent that from ever happening. Her expression hardened again. The galaxy has operated under the rule of predators for too long. Species like the Vexi have terrorized innocent civilizations without consequence. That ends now. Over the following hours, Amy worked with Admiral Rodriguez to establish the framework for Phoenix Division. The Vexi ship would become their mobile base of operations. Amy would recruit other enhanced humans, people who had been pushed beyond normal human limits and emerged stronger. The HFY prisoners would serve as test subjects for new enhancement procedures, experiencing firsthand the kind of scientific experimentation they had inflicted on others. It was poetic justice on a galactic scale. As the USS Vengeance prepared to depart, Amy sent one final message to Marcus. "Tell my parents I'm sorry I can't come home, but also tell them that their daughter died protecting humanity and was reborn to defend the innocent throughout the galaxy." Amy Carter had begun her career as a scientist studying alien life. She ended it as something new, humanity's guardian angel and the galaxy's worst nightmare for those who preyed on the weak. The HFY empire crumbled within weeks as their facilities shut down and their victims rose up across the galaxy. Other, predatory species received a clear message. Humanity was no longer prey. They were the hunters now, and they did not show mercy to those who harmed the innocent. Amy's transformation became a legend throughout human space and beyond. She had shown that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to stay down when knocked down. They turned suffering into strength, death into rebirth, and victims into victors. The galaxy would never be the same.